back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler here with Johnny. Happy Halloween, Johnny. What's going on?
Hey, Tyler. Happy Halloween. We're just about there. It's a good time to be on Collector's Quest if you care about Halloween.
Why is that?
Because we're doing more Halloween episodes. This is the last one of the year.
Oh, God, finally. Just one more, and then we can get back to, I don't know what we talk about. NES games all the time?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, then we can like really get into maybe like some historical firsts and stuff, you know, old games. None of this current bullshit that I make you talk about.
Exactly. Perfect. Johnny, before we get into talking about stupid old games that only Tyler wants to talk about, the Internet Archive has been down for a while, and it's horrible. I thought, like, wow, that's going to be inconvenient. And, like, literally in just the past 2 hours of talking about this episode with you, how many times have I tried to... Like, I instinctively go to the Internet Archive when there's, like, an old computer game that I just want to play in my browser without fucking around with an emulator or just looking up a manual for a video game. The Internet Archive links are always super high in a search engine. And it's got, like, it's a great interface for looking at old video game manuals. I don't even realize how often I'm on the site. And it's been hurting me that it's been down for, like, over a week now, I think.
So you realize that, like, for a lot of these old games, when I search them and, like, I'll get them, and how I save them for later is just, like, saving a link next to the name of the game when I don't have time to do the full research and I know I'm going to come back to it. Do you know how many of those links aren't working right now?
Yeah, wow, that's a problem. I mean, there are other websites, but obviously the Internet Archive has everything going back to the 90s, so it is the one database of everything on the internet. Stop DDoSing the Internet Archive. What are you doing, you stupid guys? No one likes you.
Yeah, well, these are people who hate information, apparently. Just
I don't
fucking
get it.
Worst.
If you're like a pirate, hacker, cool guy, like isn't Internet Archive like doing the coolest shit? They're just like copyright. I mean, or a library, fucking whatever. Like Internet Archive's the fucking coolest. I guess we're just gonna save all information ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably people who don't actually want the free flow of information, though, Tyler. Let's start developing conspiracy theories right now. Which government is responsible for this?
It's Russia. It's definitely Russia. Russia just hates that all the cool information is there, and they want to replace it all with propaganda.
What are we? We're leaving out China and even America. All possible suspects.
Sure. Oh man, is that why it's been down for so long? It's like a state actor. It's like America, like the CIA is DDoSing Internet Archive because they're concerned about the copyrights of old 1970s video game manuals.
Yep.
Okay.
You figured it out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well,
you know, that actually makes a lot of sense now that you say it like that. I think I'm going to make a YouTube video about that.
You should. And no one will be able to research it to prove you wrong.
Perfect.
Internet
Archive also really nice for getting past paywalls because people put things on the internet that aren't free and then they want them to appear highly in search engines, such as any, like New York Times, for example. Like you'll go to a New York Times article and be like, oh, why don't you sign up for a free trial and then you could read our articles, huh, buddy? But to make sure the full text of the article gets to the search engine, they allow Google to see the full article. So when you save a page in one of these archiving sites, it basically pretends to be Google, so you get the full site. So anytime you hit a paywall, just go to Internet Archive and save it, and you'll get the full site. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's a nice workaround, Tyler. Thank you for sharing that with people. It would sure be a shame if the Internet Archive did not come back.
That's true. You could use archive.is. That's my backup for now. It's a weird independent one. I have no idea how they're funding it or doing anything. They're definitely not archiving anything. It's just like, hey, if you want to save a page, I've got this weird website to do it. And then, you know, in 15 years, it'll be gone and you'll be like, oh man, all my stuff.
Yeah. Just so we're clear, we're not really into any conspiracy theories, but please leave the Internet Archive alone. Like, just stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's my outreach program for the day.
Okay. I think you guys, if you are serious about like weird data hoarding and backing everything up, once the Internet Archive comes back up, yes, go download everything they let you download. And then ArchiveBox is like the open source, self-hosted, offline web archiving tool where like you could just run your own little part of the Internet Archive, not for anyone to save anything to, but like you could just go save all of the video game collecting guides throughout like the 90s and 2000s and host them on a little box. And you could either have that only to yourself or you could share it, whatever you want. That's the future, because I don't know that we could depend on archive.org being here for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, it seems sketchy at best.
Something to look into. Joe.
Anyone who cares?
Just Joe.
Okay. Tyler, what else you got going on? How was your week?
I don't know, Johnny. Let's talk about horror video games.
Oh,
do you have something going
normally
on?
Normally you want to like a little more intro
This
than
was
that.
my week. My week was the Internet Archive's down. I didn't realize how much I used that website. It's a really good website.
Yeah. All right.
I've been
just wondering if you did anything exciting. Sorry for asking. Jesus.
Johnny, I'm learning like electronic stuff. I like Arduino and ESP32, like little microcontroller stuff, because phones are evil. They're the most evil device we own, and I want to have a little game on my bike when I'm riding my bike, but I don't want to have it on my phone because phones are evil, and I don't want to develop my own game because I don't want to waste all my time developing a program for an evil platform, which is a phone. So I'm going to make a little microcontroller that plays my game. Like a GPS game. This is a good idea.
Okay. Yep. All right. Yeah. I mean, way to punish me for asking
my
this.
PeerTube video on how the CIA is shutting down Internet Archive.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, we are here to talk about Halloween games in a fashion. Today I want to do something that I thought about you for this episode, Tyler. I thought, man, I know Tyler sometimes struggles with themed episodes. So I wanted to do an episode that more speaks to you personally. How'd you feel about it?
Pretty good. What are we're gonna talk about only TRS-80 games today?
Yep. Yeah. So this episode is Historic Halloween First. So looking back and just trying to find all old stuff. Yeah, there's going to be room for debate in some of these, whether they're first. And I think some people may offer corrections or exceptions or actuallys. I'm sure we'll get some of those. But we did our best to compile a list of games cited on certain axes of what we think are the first in kind of different categories. First vampire game, ghost game, haunted mansion game, and then some other like notable Halloween-ish stuff or horror stuff that we found that we could cite as first. So that's what this episode is. We got a list. We're going to talk about it. And then you can decide if these are relevant enough for you, if you should be maybe looking to add those to your collection. So that's the episode.
Sure. And we basically focused on platforms that have physical video games because I didn't want to go and find some old 1974 Play-Doh Network game that had like a ghost in it. Because that's not useful information for anybody.
There's a lot. Hey, guess what? Play-Doh D&D solves a lot of this.
Yes. The game D&D has a lot of spooky creatures. But, Johnny, that's not horror. That's dark fantasy. And you love making the distinction.
It sure is, but I know, but if we're talking about what was the first game to, I don't know, have a vampire in it.
Is it D&D?
You might say that. It is.
Are you sure? Are you sure there's not one on the overlay for our first entry here, Johnny? Haunted House for the Magnavox
gosh, there's
Odyssey.
Something before 1974. Wow.
1972, Magnavox Odyssey came out. It had a bunch of built-in games. I don't even know how many built-in games it had. Like a dozen, something like that. It only had 6 cartridges, but there were multiple games you could play with each cartridge. And so if you don't know what the Odyssey is, so imagine each player gets basically a Pong paddle. They can move up, down, left, and right with a blob on the screen. And then you put an overlay over your TV, and it comes with basically board game rules for a bunch of different games you could play while moving squares around a TV. And like it comes with all these cards and chips and dice. Like this was a toy extravaganza as much as it was about just being Pong. And Haunted House pretty universally agreed upon as the first video game with a horror theme, in the same way that the Simon Says game is the first video game with a female protagonist because it shows a boy and a girl on the overlay. So there's technically a girl in that game. Magnavox Odyssey gets a lot of technicality first just because it threw so much random shit in the box. And it's just like, you look at the background for Haunted House and you're like, oh, there's a ghost, there's a black cat, there's a skeleton, there's a bat, there's a spider. Like all the first like Halloween symbology things, they're in this game.
Well, it turns out that games have long been attached to monsters and spooky stuff because they need like an antagonist. And, you could just be like, oh, I just put a monster in this and easy peasy, we're all done. And video games have been doing that for a long time. And the Odyssey leaned into that. Also, like, if you looked at like shooting galleries back in the day, the haunted house themes were available where you would shoot ghosts and stuff, or like haunted Old West stuff was also like kind of a theme that you would see from these. So it was pretty reasonable that Haunted House on the Odyssey was one of their first things that they added in.
Sure. And so, I wrote down the rules there. I wrote down like a simplified version of the rules, and it's still so convoluted. It is not worth explaining. But basically, one player is a ghost and hides somewhere in the house, and the other player has to explore the house via the overlay, hitting the items in a certain order without accidentally showing their square in one of the windows of the cutout. Then they lose some points, basically. But the person who's the ghost, at some point when like the first player is near them, they press the button on the controller and it makes their square appear again on the screen. And then if they accidentally get touched, the person exploring the house like loses some points, basically.
Yeah, you sink their battleship.
It does have like some amount of tension because you don't know where the second player is, and this is the first jump scare in a video game. I'm gonna say it.
Oh, there it is. We got it. So, what else is in there? What are some of the things on the overlay, or what is represented in this game?
I mean, I already said like black cats and skeletons and bats and spiders.
Yeah.
You basically like you go around a house, you have to illuminate a bunch of different objects. Like, oh, this lamp, this candelabra. It's a stupid game. You know what? If you buy a Magnavox Odyssey, you're either going to 1, play like Pong, or 2, just not play it. Those are the two options. You're probably leaning towards 2, and I still think you should own a Magnavox Odyssey. It's just too historically relevant. And in a world of like the dumbest shit selling for thousands of dollars on heritage auctions, basically you still get a very nice complete in box Magnavox Odyssey. One of the most important video game things for like well under $1,000. Maybe not well under, but $400 to $1,000 depending on how nice and complete it is.
Yeah. I mean, when you buy it though, just make sure it has the overlay in it, because sometimes those are missing. So don't buy one that is missing parts. Just
either you got to buy 2 cheap ones and put them together to like 100% guarantee that you have it all, or just get like the one really nice one.
Yeah.
And there's an amazing Odyssey site that goes over like line by line exactly what should be in the box. And as soon as you play an Odyssey, you'll be like, oh, this is kind of terrible. And a lot of them have like unused components. You'll see like there's like these poker chips. I don't remember what game they're used for, but like a lot of them, no one ever opened the poker chips because we're like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? So they're usually in pretty good condition, I think.
Yeah, and the Haunted House game is right on the front of the Odyssey box. You can see it. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. If you're wondering what that purple blob is, that's the Haunted House overlay. That's what it looks like.
And that's it, Johnny. The most important one. We could end the episode here because we've already gone over the most important one. It's kind of the first everything.
Yeah, well, it's not the first vampire.
That's true. There's no vampire in that game.
It's also not the first survival horror game.
Johnny.
We have more to talk about.
1973, Hunt the Wumpus is occasionally cited as the first personal computer horror game, or even insanely an early example of survival horror. By who? Who is citing Hunt the Wumpus as survival horror?
I have a few questions here. One, how many people even know what Hunt the Wumpus is? Okay, if you haven't listened to this podcast, have you ever even heard of this game? And if you're not over the age of 50?
I think there's a reasonable number of people over the age of 50 who know what Hunt the Wumpus is.
That's why I said you have to. If you aren't over 50 and you don't listen to this podcast, I think people citing it as survival horror. Where are these weirdo pseudo academics who are like, well, I can see how we could tie this together? No, stop it. No, you can't.
So Hunt the Wumpus is not a survival horror game. I called it a roguelike hide and seek game, which is a very generous description of it. It's basically Minesweeper. So you're exploring a map similar to how you would explore Minesweeper, and there's a Wumpus in it, and your goal is to shoot your arrow at the Wumpus, which you cannot see. You only get hints as to where it is, similar to the numbers in Minesweeper. And then there's also pits, so you'll know. So if you enter a square that's next to a pit, you get a notification you feel a breeze or something, and that means one of the squares you haven't visited yet is a pit. So be careful if you're moving from that square, similar to if you get a number in Minesweeper. And then you'll also know when you're right next to the Wumpus. So if you land on the Wumpus, you actually lose, or if you land in the pit, you lose. But if you are able to get right next to the Wumpus and choose which direction it's in and shoot the arrow, you win. It's actually a pretty fun game. Nothing to do with survival horror. There's no inventory management. I guess there is limited ammo, but that's such a stupid technicality.
Yeah, and the pit represents falling into the Wumpus's lair, which is an insta-death. I know you said you die, but great. The pit is the Wumpus's lair. You found its nest, essentially. And there's no actual physical description of the Wumpus. It's kind of later described as like a big, hairy monster, but there's no depiction of the Wumpus.
So there is in the TI-99 re-release.
Yes, I'm talking about the original. Like the you don't even know, and I don't know if that's better or worse. Like, does that make the game kind of scarier that you don't know what the Wumpus is? And the Wumpus is not like some beast of lore. I believe it was created whole cloth for this game.
Do you think Star Wars Wampas were based on the concept of the Wumpus?
Maybe, but probably more based on the idea of an abominable snowman.
Maybe the Wumpus is an abominable snowman.
Maybe it is, and maybe that tracks. But then they probably would have talked about ice and snow.
Johnny, this game was developed in 1973. Apparently the guy who made it sold discs. That is the kind of old computer thing like you literally will never find. It's like not even worth worrying about. The source code was published a few different places, I guess notably for the first time in Creative Computing, October 1975. Creative Computing, frequent guest of Tyler mentioning it on the show. The first readable computer magazine that's not like super boring and scientific. But this is, I think, the 5th issue, 1975, notably before the 1977 microcomputer boom. So this is definitely a rare issue. So if you want Hunt the Wumpus, a huge piece of survival horror history, you'll probably get the TI-99 version. And if you know anything about TI-99, this is a computer, a Texas Instruments microcomputer that is underpowered and nobody wants it. TI-99, the hardware, the software, everything is completely worthless. No one wants it. It's like $15. You can get it sealed for $30. I have no idea. As long as I've been collecting video games, I have known that TI-99 is garbage. People have always liked Apple games. People have always liked Commodore games, Amiga games. Nobody likes TI-99 games.
I love a TI-99. Nope, that's not true.
It's got, what's the Tunnels of Doom? You know Tunnels of Doom. All right. That's Hunt the Wumpus. I'm going to say it's not a horror game, but we have to mention it on the show so no one actually us.
Don't add us. We talked about Hunt the Wumpus. All right. And here's another one you probably shouldn't add us about. Tyler, tell me about Death Race from 1976 and while we're talking about it.
All right. I mean, Death Race is maybe some kind of historically important game. Probably not. Death Race is a 1976 arcade game. Maybe debatably horror. It's this squat little cabinet with 2 steering wheels, and the marquee shows 2 Grim Reapers almost driving like go-karts, I think it looks like. The whole object of the game is you've got the 2 cars that are on the playfield, and then there's humans running around, and you just run over the most people. If that's not a horror game, what is your definition of horror? It's great.
I mean, I think I gave a pretty detailed definition of what my definition of horror is.
I believe they let out blood-curdling screams as you run them over. I don't remember. I think I played this year with you at the Pinball Hall of Fame.
You did? Yes.
So this is probably... Oh, it's not the first multiplayer horror game, because Haunted House is the first multiplayer horror game. Let's call it the first controversial horror game, because this is indeed one of the first controversial video games ever made, really.
Well, I mean, you could say arcade.
What do you mean?
Like, it's an arcade game, so first arcade multiplayer.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you could just keep adding modifiers onto it. You're right.
Yeah, that's how we get to a bunch of really distinct firsts.
And also,
you keep modifying them.
Yeah, people do that with sets all the time when they're collecting sets. Well, it's not every NES game. It's every, licensed US NES game beginning with the letter L. Well, no, that is Little Samson. We can't do that. Beginning with the letter S. No, that is Stadium of... All right, Johnny.
You're really
getting
bad
off track.
At this. How about E? Excite Bike. We got there.
All right. Death Race, 500 cabinets were made, or around 500, I think is the number. That is pretty low for an arcade game. Arcade games generally don't have huge print runs to begin with, but it was a controversial game, and it's very rare now, unsurprisingly. But there are 2 places to pretty easily play this in America. One is Fun Spot in Laconia, New Hampshire, and then the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas. So for a rare, very interesting game, pretty playable, I think you should go play it before the guys running those places die, because these are going to get swallowed up into private collections like the second those shut down, because no one cares about keeping arcade history alive, man.
But why, Tyler? Why don't they care?
Because if you grew up with an iPad, you don't even know what an arcade is. You went to the App Store and you're like, oh, look, 30,000 free games. Why would I pay $0.25 to play a game for 2 minutes?
Do you think there's any curiosity there? Like, oh, they call these arcade games. What are arcades? I
mean, I hate the genre of arcade games, because like I understand when you say arcade, I think like, oh, like a game where like the average playtime might be like 3 to 5 minutes. Usually it's got like black backgrounds and shooting themes. But if you look at, you go to like Wikipedia or Moby Games, a lot of the times those games will just be called arcade games rather than, I don't know, multi-directional shooter or something. Like I bet the genre for Robotron somewhere is listed as an arcade game, which, I kind of know what you mean, but I also hate the descriptor. Because we're talking about the golden age of arcade. We're in 2024. The golden age of arcades was like 40 years ago. So like the genre doesn't mean as much anymore. There are more arcade games that were never in arcades than there are arcade games that actually were in arcades.
True.
Geometry Wars, Johnny, is an arcade game.
Excellent. Great.
I have no price. This game's rare. I have no idea what a Death Race would cost. I would assume numerous thousands of dollars. But you should buy it.
You should.
Also, to be clear, it's black and white. Black and white arcade games are cool as hell.
Okay. Debatable. Anyways, let's talk about, some of these you put on here. I love this because this is one of my arguments. Space Invaders, Tyler? Space Invaders.
This is another one. So I did a lot of like looking at like the stupid lists because I don't want to like miss something that
I know
the general consensus considers part of the horror canon. And on some of these lists, I see Space Invaders, And that's
Dude,
a pretty debatable.
I told you what this phenomenon is. Like, creators run out of things, or someone's already said it. So they like have to add something to their list. They got to like have their game that's not on that other guy's list. So they just keep tacking things on, and it keeps going like this. And then the next guy watches that video, and then they tack a couple other, and it just becomes more questionable rather than, you know me, I'm trying to take things off the list. This is bullshit. Don't count this. Count this instead. Yeah, this is a bullshit title. I get how we got there. But this is science fiction.
I will listen to their argument, because as the invaders get closer to the bottom of the screen, the music starts speeding up and they start speeding up. And it is almost similar to Jaws. And it creates the same tense atmosphere. Okay. I mean, there's something to it. It's not a horror game. I wouldn't even put horror as a subgenre on Space Invaders, but there is that element of tension, and it was such like a phenomenally popular game that I feel like it probably squeaks in just because of how phenomenally popular it is, even if it's just for that one little element. And
people are scared of aliens. I get all that, but still no. Like, okay. I'm not counting it, but it's like, again, this is why the point system exists. Like, it can get points here or there, but it doesn't mean it's going to qualify for me. If you count it in your own personal list, that's fine. But I would rather put this in science fiction. That's my argument.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in video games, it would just be 2D space shooters. Yeah. But, Johnny, I'm going to say, interestingly, eBay is not a good place to buy arcade games. It's usually like multiple times overpriced. There are no Space Invaders cabinets on eBay right now, either on it or in solds. And you know what? Serious? I bet if you went and you flashed a bunch of cash on arcademuseum.com, someone would sell you a Space Invaders cabinet. It's certainly not a rare cabinet, but you think of it as being so phenomenally popular, it would not be hard to go get a Space Invaders cabinet. I think every barcade I've ever been into has a Space Invaders cabinet. I'm surprised there are none for sale. It could be a lot of arcade stuff got like crazily snapped up during COVID. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's weird. The Space Invaders cabinet is kind of strange too. Like, have you ever, I mean, obviously you have. You've looked at the art for Space Invaders, right? Like, what is the giant monster thing doing? Because there's also tiny little spacecrafts next to it. Like, it looks like a giant on the planet it's on.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the invaders look like when they get out of their little ships. They're just like giant Bigfoot monsters, right?
Yeah, but what planet are they on? Because it's like, are they invading Earth? Because the landscape is not Earth-like.
All right. Who made Space Invaders? Taito, they're still in business. So they have made a lot of Space Invaders games, but they've always been like more or less Space Invaders. So give us the 3D open world Space Invaders where the invaders come down, they come out of their ships, and we get to see those like Bigfoot looking guys on the side of the cabinet.
Yeah.
Huh? Good concept right now, for a Space Invaders game.
I'm here for it. Like, you know what? You've made a movie about Battleship. I think it's time for the Space Invaders movie. And these are what the monsters look like. And instead of them being small aliens, because we always depict aliens as not, like roughly human size or kind of bigger than humans, let's make them gargantuan like this. Like when they invade, you're just like, oh shit, it's not as big as like a kaiju, but it's big.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize how big it is. I'm looking at the cabinet right now. Weird.
Yeah. And the spaceships are very small. You're just like, what is this? Yeah.
All right, Johnny, I'm going to make a pretty uncontroversial call. There will be a Space Invaders movie in our lifetime. I think that will happen.
Okay.
I think, you know, like there's this nostalgia cycles of stuff. I think we probably missed like the original cycle that Space Invaders would have a stupid nostalgia movie. I think it'll come back. Someone will be like, why haven't we picked up that hot Space Invaders IP? Maybe it'll be like the 40th anniversary, the 75th anniversary. Someone will want to harken back to the stupid days of Space Invaders.
I don't think the conversation is going to go like that. I agree with you, but I think it'll be like, that Space Invaders property isn't very much money. Everybody's heard of Space Invaders. Yeah, we don't have to, like that saves us $10 million in marketing alone because people have heard of it. So do a Space Invaders movie.
What's that?
What is
Jim
the
has
story?
$3 million
Who
to make a
cares? It
stupid
doesn't
movie.
matter.
Let's do it.
Yeah. It's like, and it's an Atari game, so like you don't need much story. Like they're inconsistent even in the presentation of the graphics on the side of their own arcade cabinet. So like, who cares? Make it whatever you want. Let's go.
And since it's an Atari game, we could have like some kind of NFT crypto tie-in because Atari loves that bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't though? Really, right?
John, you could also get Space Invaders on the Atari 2600. It is one of the most important Atari 2600 games. It contributed to the success of the Atari 2600 because you could play Space Invaders, the most popular game ever, at home, whereas Atari launched in 1977 with such hits as Home Run, which was not as compelling as playing Pac-Man and Space Invaders at home, believe it or not. This is an extremely common game, but if you look at the front of the box, there's this like little white copyright text at the bottom. You want to look for the version that doesn't have that text at the bottom. That's the first print.
That's good to know.
That's Space Invaders, not a horror game. We talked about it a lot. Johnny, I'm just going to say Space Invaders like 3 out of 10. Why would you play it over any other 2D shooter? Some people act like Space Invaders is still good, and I think they're wrong.
You're not getting any argument from me.
All right.
Let's talk about a game that I like.
You like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this game. I mean, if you've ever heard of it, it might be the first Dracula game, maybe. I like this game, Tyler, but it's hard to imagine it even exists. It's The House of Seven Gables. You might be more familiar with the book by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I know I'm more familiar with the book.
I'm not familiar with the book, except as it relates to this video game, because I don't read books from the 19th century normally. I'm not that cultured.
Well, I mean, it's like, who's heard of the game, though? I didn't even know there was a game for this. I mean, if it wasn't for you, I would have no idea there's a game for this.
I mean, you probably can't even find a picture of this game online.
I can't.
Like, who knows? Yeah, like, who knows where you would get a physical copy of this? That's kind of the problem with some of these really old, basically anything from the 1970s or even 1980 in terms of computer games. Some of these games have, like, such small distributions and are so obscure. It's just like one guy dumped this disc that he had onto the internet in like 2002. So we have the disc image. We know this game exists. We know who developed it, but like we know nothing about the retail distribution of this game, what it looks like. How do you even collect this? You basically can't collect this, but set up a save search so when it comes up, you bid infinite money for it.
Yeah, you should. I'll be bidding. I'll be right there with you.
Johnny, this is it's a text adventure. It's a go into the haunted house, get all the treasure, and escape game, a genre we will be discussing in depth in this episode, because man, in the late 70s, early 80s, if you were making an adventure game with a haunted, creepy house, that was the plot. You go into it, get the cool stuff, and escape. I feel like that's an 80s movies trope where the kids come up on the house and they're like, we have to get the MacGuffin inside this house, but this is old man Lawrence's house.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I'm not fighting you.
Johnny was programmed by Greg Hassett, who was apparently 12 when he programmed it. So your kids are making stupid Roblox games, and he was out here making a game that people are talking about 45 years later.
By people, you just mean us, right? It's just us?
No, it's people. Anyway, Johnny, this is probably... Unless we're going back to like Play-Doh games there's going to be something that someone can get us with. The first Dracula. Someone find me a game earlier than this that has Dracula. So as you're exploring the House of Seven Gables, one of the rooms is named Dracula's Chamber, and you have to kill Dracula with garlic and a steak. Technically, he's not named Dracula. He is a mean-looking vampire that is in Dracula's chamber. I'm gonna say it's Dracula. That is not a concept from the House of the Seven Gables, though. Dracula is not in that book, believe it or not. So this was
Weird.
just like a 12-year-old who's like, you know what I really like? I like The House of the Seven Gables and I like Dracula. I'm just a 12-year-old who's really into old literature.
He did it.
What
Thanks.
a nerd. What a stupid nerd.
What a stupid. You leave that boy alone.
Dude, he's what? How old is he now? He might not even be alive anymore.
Oh, now he might be dead.
No, let's see.
Gotta
He was
stop
born
it.
in 66, so he's probably still alive. He's probably just retired. He's probably thrilled we're talking about his old adventure game. If like I used to program like little games for the TI-83 because that was like the first thing I could program. If someone was talking about some of the stupid games I made, like my economic simulations, whatever I was making, I'll be thrilled. I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember making that in math class.
Yeah, you would be pretty pleased. I warned.
Johnny, this came out for the TRS-80, the Apple II, and the Exidy Sorcerer, a flop. It's a computer that used the same chip as the TRS-80, so it was easy to port TRS-80 games to it. But they called it the Exidy Sorcerer, which is fucking awesome. And this computer costs hundreds of dollars, and you won't find any software, let alone the House of the Seven Gables for it. But go get an Exidy Sorcerer if you like old computers, just because it sounds so damn cool. All of them online are like $700 to $1,500.
You know, you mentioned the Exidy, and that's not the only game on this list that was also released on the Exidy.
Hell yeah.
Are you ready? Bump up your Exidy software game if you're a collector. That's all I'm saying. Because there are some gems out there. The House of Seven Gables, I'll fight you for that game. But let's talk about The Count.
This game has nothing going for it, but you just really wanted to talk about it because you like it.
Well, because I assumed this was going to be the first Dracula game until you brought up The House of Seven Gables. So The Count came out in 1979, and it was made by Scott Adams. It's one of the Scott Adams graphic adventures. Is it his second one? Is it the second one he did? I can't remember. And I didn't look. So if you don't, it's Scott Adams, not Dilbert Scott Adams, by the way, just so we're clear on that.
No, the good one.
Yeah, maybe the good one. We don't know. Anyways, there is definitely Dracula's castle in this, and a Dracula-like figure. It's definitely Dracula. So that's cool until you learn that the House of Seven Gables, which you can't buy out, but you can go buy The Count. It was re-released in 1982 with graphics. It's been on many systems, including the Atari 400. Do you like that? The Atari 400? Do you enjoy that?
Not really. I'm not an Atari guy.
There's one on the TRS-80, which is, do not buy the one on the TRS-80. I'm just telling you. The box art is horrific. What is also
That's what I want in a horror
about
game. What are you talking about?
What's that?
That's what I want in a horror game. I want horrific box art.
No. It's not scary. It's like a child drew it. It's like the guy who published Greg Hassett, like he was 12. He also drew the cover art for The Count.
Okay.
Like a year later. I don't know. 13-year-olds can draw. I've seen some good 13-year-old drawings. This is terrible. I don't know if you've seen the TRS-80 cover, but it's very bad. And what's interesting about The Count, especially if you look at like the Atari 400 version of The Count, it is also leaning on the Frank Frazetta art that inspires Castlevania, because it is totally like, I don't know, like they're like, oh, that art inspired Castlevania. I don't know if that inspired Castlevania or they saw this art for The Count and that inspired Castlevania, because this is Castlevania art, and it like clearly this inspired like Buffy the Vampire Slayer too. Like the layers of inspiration for this game have to go deep. Do you know which cover I'm talking about?
I do.
Are you seeing it?
I know what cover you're talking about. It just shows Dracula, right? It's just like his face.
It shows Dracula next to his castle. Like he's much bigger than his castle. I don't know why. And then it's got a girl with a hammer and a stake at the foot of the gate going up a path to Dracula's castle.
Okay, all right, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, you're right. So do we have the game Castles of Darkness. Yeah, we do have Castles of Darkness on this list. It's the same image of a castle. Johnny, I think an iron gate with a like long winding path leading up to it, up a mountain with a creepy castle on it, and the moon and bats flying over the moon. That just seems like such a generic picture of anything Dracula-y.
Yes, I agree, but I like that didn't just start out of nowhere, right? So, and this is very much like the positioning of all the art is definitely looks like the Castlevania art, even like the action pose, which is then based off the Friends art. Like, come on, you don't see that these are connected.
All right, I see that they're connected, but you're basically saying that the reason to buy this, what's the reason to buy this? Because I'm pretty sure
because
that
it is
the
first Dracula game. It's the first Dracula game you can buy, really.
Because you're not going to find House of the Seven Gables. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm not even sure how House of the Seven Gables was released. I don't know if it... Like,
it has a publisher. This isn't just like some kid made it in his house. Like, these games have publishers. So someone distributed it somehow.
Yeah, so like you were saying, some of these games are hard to find. Some of them, it's like, oh, it was like one issue of a magazine had the code for it, and you put it in. And you're like, okay, or some dude like randomly distributed like 20 discs around his city because he made the game, and that just makes it kind of untenable to talk about. Like, it's cool if you can find it. Who knows if you ever will. This game we can count on. Get it, Tyler? We can count on this one existing.
Yeah. Really count on it. There's one copy of one version on eBay and eBay Solds, and I think you bought it.
No, that wasn't me.
Oh, all right. It sold for $130.
I already own this. No, there's more. So if you look at the VIC-20 version or Commodore version, there's a couple of versions of those right now, and there's actually one of the Atari 400 ones with the good art on it, and there's some truly terrible box art for this, like because it's been released like 5 or 6 times on different systems, so you can get the bad art, but there is one with the good art available right now for $90. But the other one, the Commodore one, usually goes for between 20 and 40, and that one's got pretty good art, and it's just like Dracula front and center with his castle behind him, the Commodore version. So,
all right,
you can go find those. They're available.
VIC-20, a little bit similar to the TI-99. Computer software no one wants. A lot of VIC-20 software is really inexpensive, including the Count.
Yeah. Yep. The Count, the advantage of buying it on the VIC-20 is that it's cheap. And it does make sure to let you know it is a Scott Adams Adventure Series game. Because that was a big deal back in the day.
Johnny, we're closing the book on games now that had a release on the Exidy Sorcerer. Unfortunately, Exidy made... This is the end of the Exidy segment, because Exidy made Death Race. They made House of Seven... They didn't make it, but they had House of Seven Gables and the Count ported to their very obscure failed computer. And then they also made Chiller. So Exidy, important in the history of weird horror games. I love it.
Somehow, the Exidy popular nowhere else, but important here.
Johnny, there's a game we bring up a lot on this show. It's called Mystery House by Sierra Online. This game is not online.
I've never heard of it.
Yes. Ken and Roberta Williams made the first graphic adventure game, and it's one of the grails of computer gaming because people used to like adventure games in the 80s and 90s, and now it's a genre no one plays anymore. Let's not worry about it. It is part of the go into the haunted house, get all the treasure, and escape series of adventure games. And I feel like we've discussed Mystery House enough on this show. You know, it's an important game in adventure game history. It's got weird, cool wireframe graphics, and it goes for like $2,000 to $6,000. I chose to abstain from a Calibeth, which you could probably make some dark fantasy allusions to horror with like skeletons and guys in creepy robes in a Calibeth. I would say a Calibeth is probably the grail of computer gaming because there are so few original copies known to exist. Mystery House is much more common than a Calibeth, but it's still probably in the top 10 most collectible boomer PC games, not counting like whatever weird sealed John Madden football people are buying for tens of thousands of dollars. Like, boomer collectors who actually care about this stupid old shit. That's it. Go buy a mystery house. There's one on eBay that's been sitting for $4,000. Is it signed? It's like it has like a modern signature, I think. Go get it, Johnny.
There's some.
There's
some like There's also some loose disc versions that you can get for like $400, but that seems.
Yeah, the discs do come up. I mean, what are you gonna do with a loose disc? Come on. Go get that signed one.
I mean, if you just have a loose disc and you assume it's a baggy game, you just put it in a baggie, and then you've got a box and disc. You're almost there.
So, I mean, that's true. The $4,300 one, the baggie has a sticker that says Mystery House June 10th, 1983 on it, which is cool because that definitely means that's the original baggie, and a lot of these baggie games have the baggies replaced.
Yep. But also, this game came out in 1980, which means it's not the first print.
Yeah, it's definitely not the first print, but who cares? You're getting a Mystery House. Come on. It's cool.
It would be nice to own a Mystery House. I keep waiting for this game to just like show up in a bad lot of like discs, like someone just lists it for $30. It's never happened.
You'll definitely be the one who gets it then.
Yeah, I definitely won't be, but a boy can dream.
Didn't Kanakis just bought a like an Apple II lot, I think, and he found some good stuff in there. I think he found like a pro game Ultima, which is the second release of Ultima, still worth like $1,000. Yeah, it could happen. Get on that Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace.
I'm doing it.
People use.
I'm there. Let me go right now. Forget this episode. I need to go find a cheap mystery house.
Johnny.
Tyler. Whoa. You're reading my mind?
What's up?
Did you? I'm just saying. You said Tyler the exact same, or you said Johnny the exact same way I said Tyler.
Do you want to talk about the House of Usher?
I would. Is it falling?
Is that the name of the series?
Yes.
Or are you talking about the actual book or the short story? Johnny, just tell me.
Yes.
Start this segment. How about?
No, I won't do it. No, follow the House of Usher, or actually just the House of Usher. 1980 for the Atari 800 and the Apple II. This might count as the first horror RPG. How do you feel about that?
Not
you have
great.
Stats. You have stats?
I think it's possible. I think RPG is a notoriously hard genre to define. But you technically have stats in this game. You've got stamina, courage, and defense, and particularly defense. That feels like a pretty RPG stat. So a lot of these old adventure games, they have score, and like kind of the goal of the game is not just to beat it, but to beat it with the maximum amount of score. And this goes a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a cool game just to own. Regardless of that. It is a go into the house and get the stuff horror game, which I guess I call it an RPG, but it's really an adventure game. It's got like this top-down view, and you're running around a house, and there's actually 2 ways to win, which probably that's cool.
Maybe the first horror game with multiple endings, something I've sometimes seen attributed to Splatterhouse 3, which is
no
internet. Get
Incorrect.
out of here! What are you talking about? But this is really cool because you can win by getting 1,000 courage, which is basically experience points. So the more enemies you kill, the more courage you get. Or by getting 1,000 wealth, which is exploring the house and getting stuff. And there's a real timer ticking down in this game. And man, I always say more games need real-time timers. You have from, I think, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. of in-game time to explore the house and get all the stuff or kill all the bad guys. And like in that amount of time, you can't possibly explore the entire house. So it's one of these games you have to replay over and over and kind of like find a route that works to get the stuff. And so if you win by getting 1,000 courage, the game just kind of instantly ends and it's like, oh, you're the most courageous dude, whatever. But if you win by getting 1,000 wealth, there's some kind of mystery in the adventure part of the game, and you have to type in the solution to the mystery to get like the real ending. And I believe, if I'm thinking of the right game, They advertised an $100 prize to the first person to figure out the mystery and get that ending. Pretty cool. $100.
Pretty cool.
You know how well this game sold when it was probably for sale for $25 and they had a $100 prize for one person.
Damn, I bet all 7 of those people were really excited to compete for that.
I've seen this game at least once, I think, on eBay, so it's not impossible to find. It's not one of these stupid games you'll never find.
I've lost an auction for this.
Oh man. I just lost I just failed to buy like a really rare Commodore PET game. And like I didn't really want it, but like now I'm just thinking back, it's like I'll just never see it again.
It's true.
Ugh, these old computer games are rough. You kids complaining about your stadium events in Little Samson. I could go on Heritage Auctions and sometime in the next 6 months they'll have a stadium events for sale. Where are you going to find a House of Usher? If you could go complain to like the old computer guys and they'll be like, oh, not only will they not want to sell it to you because they want to keep it, but they'll be like, oh, you're just going to come into our community and try to take our best stuff? Fuck you. And you'll get edged out of the community for just trying to buy their best stuff. Like so, Johnny going on the PC Engine FX forums.
But I did get their best stuff. So the interesting thing about the House of Usher, though, is it's not unobtainium. You can actually go to eBay and buy it right now. But there are multiple types of the House of Usher out there. So don't be fooled by the fall of the House of Usher. This is just the House of Usher. There's like an early aughts, like one of these hidden object game. That's not it. There is a game called The Fall of the House of Usher, which is a CD-ROM game. Also clearly not it, but there is like House of Usher for the Atari 800 you can get, where it's just the cassette version. There's a couple different versions of that. There's some loose discs, but you want the good one, the disc with the box.
So to be clear, so the Atari game House of Usher, I think it came out in 1984. That's a completely different game from Crystalware House of Usher, which is the one you want. House of Usher on Atari, it's like a cartoony platformer. It's completely different.
Yep. So the Crystalware one, there are loose discs available for it right now, and there are multiple labels even for that. So careful when you're buying it. But there's like one right now, but it's $200, and it's just the disc. I
don't want to buy. What am I going to do with a floppy disk? I'm going to like put it in one of those floppy disk holders and it'll get lost forever. And then I'll be like, oh, I have a $200 floppy disk in there. Like, come on.
You get one of those brown things that holds the floppy disk, with like the translucent smoke. Yeah, exactly. Black
That's what
tops.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, like that every office had once upon a time. And it's just a hoard of it. And you'll be like, look at my video game collection. Isn't this awesome?
So Akalabeth is like a $10,000 plus game, and that's the one, and like the original copies are so rare, and that's the one game maybe I would consider buying a disc-only copy of, and I still don't think I would. Don't buy loose floppy disks. Get out of here, guys.
You can buy a loose floppy disk if you want. Do it. Then show us, and see if Tyler says something mean to you.
Johnny, 1981, we have an interesting game that has been brought up on the show a few times. It is AX2 Uchu Yusen Nostromo, which means AX2 Space Freighter Nostromo, for the PC 6001, apparently also released for a Japanese Commodore PET, and I've never seen that version, so just pretend it doesn't exist. But this is it's a collection of 4 minigames, but the only one you care about is the one called Nostromo, because this is frequently argued as the first survival horror game, unlike Hunt the Wumpus, which is not the first survival horror game. So it's a maze game, so think Pac-Man, but it's a top-down view, and you've got 8 rooms, and the rooms are full of the suits from playing cards. And you have to sneak into, and the alien is an @ sign. So these are all like ASCII symbols that are just drawn on the screen. There's no like real graphics. And you're running away from the @ sign, trying not to be seen by the @ sign. Well, I think the goal is you collect 4 of each symbol. You basically have to run in and collect these symbols and then return to the entrance for each level. And that's how you beat the level. And you would look at it and you'd be like, okay, you're getting chased by an alien and you're technically like collecting items and shit. But is this really survival horror? Well, in the later levels, the alien disappears while it's chasing you. And I say alien, this is obviously a ripoff of the movie Alien. The game's called Nostromo. That's the ship from the movie Alien.
I mean, it's also the name of the Joseph Conrad book, Nostromo.
No one knows about books. What are you talking about, Johnny?
I mean, yeah, Nostromo also means like boatswain or shipmate.
Johnny, no one uses the word boatswain, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Anyway, the @ sign that's chasing you disappears in later levels and then randomly reappears, which it's just ASCII graphics, but I think it's pretty effective. It gives me a similar vibe to 3D Monster Maze, which is a game we'll talk about later, where you're running through corridors and you don't exactly know where the bad guy is. And that adds to the stress. I think this is building upon that stress you get at the end of Space Invaders, but because there's unknown information now, like this is like real kind of a horror element here. So if you've looked at footage of this game, one, it has been ported to a bunch of different platforms by like weird hobbyists. So make sure you're looking at the actual PC 6001 version of the game if you're interested in it from a historical perspective. But also, make sure you're looking late enough into the game to where you're seeing the alien disappear, because that's really where kind of the survival horror, quote unquote, element comes in.
Okay.
I don't think this is survival horror, Johnny. I think there's probably some list of survival horror elements, and someone is like really stretching, like, oh, well, technically there's an inventory because you got to collect the playing card suits. It's definitely a horror game. It has kind of a jump scare, but you know what? That Magnavox Odyssey Haunted House game is, I'm going to say, the first game with a jump scare, so it doesn't really have that. I think this is a very interesting game, but I think it is pretty debatable to call it the first anything, really, besides a really interesting horror game.
Okay. If you say so.
Johnny, Red the Game Shark had this for sale like 4 or so years ago at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And
yep, it's got a cool cover.
I was at your table for a while, and I guarantee he didn't have it labeled or anything. He just has this like NEC PC 6001 game, no translation or anything. It's just like, here it is. It's $100. Would you believe it or not? No one bought it.
You know, and I debated buying it several times, and I kind of wish I would have bought it.
I would say this is $50 to $100. It's maybe uncommon. I don't think it's super rare. I definitely see it while browsing old Japanese computer games sometimes. Weirdly, I've seen like a couple people post it on Reddit. So like I think it has entered like the Wikipedia horror genre, like that article. So like people know about it, and so some people like go out and seek it out. So there are people who want to buy this. And you know what?
Maybe you should buy it. I should buy it. We should both buy it.
You should buy it.
Should we buy it? Let's buy it now.
I have a sealed copy that I doubt is actually sealed, because who knows how PC 6001 games were sealed, Johnny. But that was my chance to brag about that.
And you get some Nostromo cred here. You're like, oh, you don't know about the Nostromo? Oh, you mean the Joseph Conrad book, which is everyone's first guess when you say Nostromo.
Yeah.
They definitely don't go right to Alien. It's all leaning on that.
Actually, Nostradamus named himself after Joseph Conrad's Nostromo.
He did, yeah. That and his Heart of Darkness.
What is this? This book has nothing to do with space.
No, it's a movie about boats.
It's not even about boats. It's about like South American colonies. Ugh.
Yeah, no, it's about a boats. It's about the captain who leads his men, and he never achieves like true fame or glory through these wealthy Europeans. Like go look up read on it. It's like a made up South American region, like Costawana or something he calls it.
All right.
I can't even,
I like Master and Commander Far Side of the World, so maybe I'll
yeah, this is for you.
Look at that.
Yeah.
F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "I'd rather have written Nostromo than any other novel." That's a pretty high praise.
That is very high praise. Yeah, Nostromo was also, he's an Italian. Yeah, it's like, and then like you get into the meaning of the word Nostromo. They named him that, but is that a bastardization of the Italian word? There's some lore here you can get into. If you travel far enough down a rabbit hole reading about Alien, it will eventually take you to the importance of Nostromo and how it came to be. And then you'll like further travel down why it's a book from Joseph Conrad. I said about boats, but the Nostromo, being the name of the boat based off the captain, or boatswain of this fucking ship. Anyways, go read it. Go read the book. Report back.
Johnny, I wanted to find the first Frankenstein game. I think.
Yeah. Did you find 1981's Datasoft's 1981 Hangman Frankenstein game?
I have to imagine Frankenstein has appeared as a concept before this, but I also remember I did look pretty deeply to find the first poker game, and there wasn't like a poker game until the 1980s. So potentially this is actually the first Frankenstein game. August 1981, it's Hangman. And I think this is one of those games that's so rare you'll never find it. It's just an annoying technicality. Because 3 months later, we got Frankenstein Adventure, which is the first non-bullshit Frankenstein game, which is a text adventure where you play a descendant of Victor Frankenstein and have to gather the scientific components and body parts to reanimate the monster. So they didn't even do a retelling of Frankenstein. They made their own story that's a sequel to Frankenstein. That's cool.
Which is pretty cool.
And I think you highlighted it because you're going to go look for it on eBay and you're going to be like, oh, I can't find this because this is one of those impossible to find computer games.
Yeah,
is that what you just did?
This is the problem. This is one of the problems with this list. I mean, we already threw out this caveat is why you might like put your finger up and actually me is there. Sure, you know of some like weird computer game that was only a magazine code in. Like there's lots of weird stuff you could have, games that were sold, like I said, regionally. As far as like confirmable retail, all the caveats we have to put in it, I like Frankenstein's Adventure better than the Hangman Frankenstein. The Hangman Frankenstein is fun though, because each time you fail, what happens is you construct Frankenstein. And once he's fully, instead of a stick figure, and then once you fail the word completely, Frankenstein is assembled and breaks loose. So it's fun. But this game's not easy to find either, Tyler. Why do you find so many hard to find games?
Because these games like just exist as disk images in the ether, so they get put into video game databases, and the release information, like any real information about these, is really hard to find. A good test is to go to Moby Games for basically any game. If they don't have a picture of what the disc or the box or the baggie looks like, just assume you'll probably never find that game. Yeah,
it's so tough too, because you will find like one random image and you're like, where did it even come from? There's no background of it.
And sometimes that image will just like follow you around the internet, like, oh, someone has this game. Here's a picture of it.
Yeah. Or you'll only see that one image and like it'll be talked about 10 times, but it's only that one image that no one cites.
Yep.
It's the worst. That's what looking for bullshit from the 80s and 70s is like on modern computers. Anyways, it's cool. It's a cool concept that it exists. I like that they went with the sequel. I wish I could buy it more easily.
Do you know what you can buy easily, Johnny?
No, I don't.
It's the pick of the show. A game I'll rave about every time we talk about it. It's 3D Monster Maze for the ZX81. That is the computer that came out before the ZX Spectrum. That is black and white with no sound.
It's black and white and red all over.
You should buy this game.
Do you get why it's red all over? Because it has no sound.
That's a good joke. Wow. If we were workshopping comedians, I'd be like, Johnny, that's funny.
Thank you. I did it. Yeah.
Johnny, this is a game about a T-Rex chasing you through a 3D maze while you search for the exit, and because it has no sound, that absolutely makes it creepier, but even adding to the creep factor, there are subtitles about what is happening in the game. And so as you're running around this maze, you'll get subtitles like, "Footsteps approaching. Rex has seen you. Run! He is behind you." And so you're obviously moving in sort of like this turn-based, grid-based way, but the dinosaur's chasing you in real time. And this game is awesome. It's totally playable. Like, once the Internet Archive comes back up, go find the article where this is archived and playable online and go play it. It's a cool video game. If you get hit by the dinosaur and he's behind you, you basically get a jump scare animation because the screen will immediately cut to it's like a 4-frame animation of the dinosaur coming and chomping you with his teeth. So like, dinosaurs not traditionally horror, but I'm definitely calling this a horror game. And some people,
I think they used a dinosaur, and I think a dinosaur used in this way is scary and would qualify. So they knew what they were doing when they made this. And you're right about the subtitles making it creepier. Like, they're adding elements in there to make this a horror game. And people want the dinosaur game. I can't remember what is the dinosaur game? Like, that's basically from PS1.
What? Dino Crisis.
PS1 dinosaur game, like
Jurassic Park.
Not Resident.
What?
No, it's basically an offshoot of not an offshoot
Dino Crisis?
of Resident Evil, but yes, thank you, Dino Crisis. Yeah, thank you. God, couldn't get there. Dino Crisis, that what people like to cite as a horror game all the time. I'm not opposed to it. Dinosaurs just a stand-in for a monster. Had it been any other more traditional monster, we would be like, oh my God, yes. Like, it could be Frankenstein. It could be anything. So I don't think that changes what the game is about.
I think it's kind of cooler that it's a dinosaur because it makes the game like a little bit ridiculous, but it's still such a scary game that like it doesn't ruin it. Like, if it, I don't know, if it was like a clown or something, it might have ruined it. Or if it was like a Pac-Man ghost, but it's awesome.
Yeah, so this game is available. You can find it for like, I want to say $50 to $100 for some versions of it, but like the bad tape versions. But you got to keep your eye out. It doesn't always show up. It's not always available.
Yeah, I mean, they're all tape versions. It's only on the ZX81, which is a somewhat obscure computer. What you have going for you, this is, as far as I know, all right, so I will say, as far as anyone remembers, this is the most popular ZX81 game. I don't know what it was like in 1981, but as far as anyone remembers now, this is the only ZX81 game anyone ever talks about. And there's like some weird enthusiast website that has a list of every ZX81 game and rarity ratings for them, and it's crazy. Like, half the games are 5 out of 5 rarity. It's just like, yeah, you can't find any of these. And then 3D Monster Maze is a 1 out of 5. It is common for what it is. It shows up occasionally. It's one of those things where like, oh man, there's maybe none on eBay right now, which that's true. There are none on eBay right now. And then like 2 or 3 might come up at the same time. So it's not impossible to find if you set up a saved search. There are multiple variants of it. There's the kind of the main ones you'll see. There's a brown cover and a color cover. Obviously the brown one came before the color cover. I would get the brown cover. It looks older. That makes it cooler.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the exact wrong time to be buying a game like this. This is when people would be looking for it. So, thankfully, this is coming out like when Halloween's already got here. So, by the time you probably start looking, people are probably over it, less interested. So, it should start showing back up again. Also, I wanted to say, don't be confused by this because there is just a game called Monster Maze that's out there which is like an Atari 8-bit game by Epix. That's not it.
There's also a game called
a bunch
3D
of games called
Monster
like
Chase,
3D
which is
Maze.
not it either.
Yeah. So there are a lot of games with very similar titles. So if you do like an eBay search, you're going to see a bunch of these. You make sure it's very specifically 3D Monster Maze. Not Monster Maze, not 3D Maze, but 3D Monster Maze. Put it all together to get the right one.
Johnny, we haven't talked about the sponsor of our show yet, which is retrogames.co.uk, which is not actually a sponsor.
Whoa. You said we haven't talked about the sponsor of the show, and we have talked about Red the Game Shark, and you didn't even do his plug-in. You like his plug. You going to make me do it? Fine, I'll do it. If you need cheap import games, make sure you're contacting Red the Game Shark, where you can get those games cheap at Cheap Games. Now you can go.
Thanks, Johnny.
Talk about retrogames.
Retrogames.co.uk does have one in stock for £60, which is kind of right about what it's worth. So you can go get one there.
That's a good buy.
It is the later print with the color cover. I don't know. I would wait for an earlier one.
Yeah, I like the black and white cover.
All right, Johnny, I love this game. I don't know how, so I didn't want to bring this up as its own game. In 1980, so like a year before 3D Monster Maze, there was this game called Death Maze 5000 for the TRS-80. I really like early 3D games, whether they're real-time or wireframe. I mean, the history goes kind of all the way back to Play-Doh Network games, then you get like Battle Zone as like a real-time 3D game. But I like all these like weird early 3D games when they're kind of figuring stuff out, and they're cool. One of them is called Death Maze 5000. This is not a horror game, because we were thinking about bringing this up because it's called Death Maze 5000. It basically seems like a 3D first-person adventure game, and the only reason I'm bringing it up in here is because it's most similar to 3D Monster Maze. But if you are looking for a game called Death Maze 5000, which is a really interesting early 3D game, you can just go get it on eBay for $629, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll have that game that everyone's talking about. People will walk into your game room and be like, is that Death Maze 5000? Hot damn.
You should do that.
I think I watched it on eBay.
Buy it.
If he lowers it to like 150, I'll buy it, Johnny.
Okay. I hope you do. I hope he does.
Moving on.
Anyways,
from the pick of our show.
Yep.
1981, Johnny. We've got Castles of Darkness. And
we're talking about really, really amazing stuff here.
Are you joking?
I love this.
You joshing me?
No, I love all this stuff.
So this is a problem
that we get to talk
for
about
you.
Castles of Darkness.
Castles of Darkness. It's one of these games with like the creepy winding path up to a creepy castle, basically the same as the Count. You would probably consider this a dark fantasy game that has nothing to do with horror, and you would be correct. But the game's called Castles of Darkness. I don't care, and it's on this list because I believe it's the first 3D animated adventure game, which is something that always gets attributed to King's Quest, because King's Quest really pioneered it and had much better animation. I believe this is the first animated adventure game, which, man, I know we're loading up on the qualifiers here. But I want people to care about Castle of Darkness. I don't know.
Okay.
There's one on eBay for a cool $1,500. This is just a baggy Apple II game.
How many should we buy? One or two?
Well, you could probably buy this one, and then another one won't come up for a long time. The label on the disc is almost completely gone, and it has a huge brown stain on it. But there is $1,500.
There's a baggy one for $500 or best offer as well.
Is there? Is it mislisted? Yes.
It's listed
as Castle of Darkness. So the guy typoed the name. All right, yeah. So never mind. Go get that one. That one's a way better deal.
And it looks to be in maybe better condition too.
That one's already on my watch list. So that guy has not been sending out the offers, Johnny.
It has a best offer. You can just add. Do you want me to offer him $100?
No, I don't. That guy. There's this guy from what is it, Denmark? He's got all this amazing stuff, and it's all priced like he knows. It's all games that like people have not heard of. Like it's all this weird Apple stuff. Like no one cares about, but he has them all so specifically priced because it's clearly like an old guy collector selling his collection, and he knows the relative value of everything. So, like the Caverns of Freetag, that's $700. Apparently Caverns of Freetag, Fairytag That's a real classic, as opposed to Voyage of the Valkyrie. That's only $179. Who the fuck cares about Voyage of the Valkyrie? Probably both
Not
games
me.
you'll just never find.
One day, Tyler.
I want to be a cool computer guy, Johnny.
You can do it, Tyler. There's still time. You have time and money on your side.
All right, I guess.
So we get to move away from 1981. And we get to go to Poltergeist. We've talked about this game a lot as well. What a cool game. It might be the first licensed horror movie game, Tyler. Poltergeist 1982 for the TRS-80. And it's kind of a minigame compilation. It is in color. That's something, right?
Wow, it's in color.
Yeah, there's one where where you go from like house to house. I don't know why you're like running from house to house in like the over screen. It doesn't really make any sense. This should be a singular haunted house game.
Yep, and we've also, one of the mini games is like your footsteps, like trying to get up a staircase, like almost like Frogger.
Yep, and there's like ghosts and stuff that pop out, and the stairs are moving. There's like holes and stuff. It's interesting.
It's not a freaking adventure game like all the other games on this list so far, so that's something.
Yes, that is something. And it's Poltergeist, and it comes in a nice little silver box. Go get one. How many are on eBay right now, though, Tyler?
There's none, and there's none in solds, which is interesting, because I feel like every other time we've mentioned this, we've been able to go on eBay and get a price for it.
Yep, and, I can't imagine, even if it was very popular, I can't imagine that many exist. So keep your eyes out for it. There's also, I read some stuff where there's a TI 99 version of this game. I have zero evidence of that actually existing. Just like a couple like weird articles that mentioned it as not the same game as this. So if you come across that one, you let me know.
As not the same game. So there is
not the same.
There's a VIC 20 cassette
that it even
on
exists.
eBay I'm seeing. Is that the same game?
What's that?
There's a VIC 20 cassette that is the same game. So the game also came out on the VIC 20. But forget the VIC 20.
There's one on the VIC 20?
TRS-80 is cool as hell.
I didn't know there was one on the VIC 20. I'll buy that right now.
Yeah, it says rare. It's a cassette only though, so don't buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Well, the guy says the description says very rare, and I am famously swayed by descriptions of random eBay shit.
Me too.
But you know what? I feel like we've mentioned this game multiple times in the show. We have never mentioned a VIC 20 version. And actually, that's not on Moby Games either. So what's going on? I'm feeling like this actually is genuinely rare, what we're looking at, and it's only $30 more now, Johnny.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right. Well, I'm not buying it. I'm going to post it in the Discord. One watched in the past 24 hours. Did you just watch it?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course I did. So, anyways, there might be other versions of this. It is interesting, though. He shows screenshots from this one. I don't know if these are the real screenshots, but he shows the same Poltergeist game that is the same for the TRS-80. But this one that I saw like a couple mentions on for the TI-99 says it's not the same, but who knows if that's even real or someone just is misremembering.
Johnny, move us on. I'm going to post this game in the Discord and hopefully someone will buy it.
Okay. So the next game on our list, Tyler, tell me if you know about this game. It has to do with the Nostromo. It's Alien for the Atari 2600. Came out also in 1982. Also maybe the first licensed horror movie game because we don't have exact dates on these two. So these are our first... I think I saw an ad when we were trying to decide last time, and that would like Poltergeist was a little bit earlier, but there's no definitive answer that I came up with.
I guarantee we don't have the TRS-80 information. I think people are pretty good at tracking down Atari release dates based on when advertisements started appearing for them. Yeah. And I bet like Alien was just like a late release in 1982, and that's why we said Poltergeist is probably earlier.
Probably. Yeah, I think we did get the date of Alien. I cannot remember. I'll have to re-listen to our own episode. Anyways, Alien, it goes between $70 to $150 if you want a nice copy. It's in one of those Fox boxes. Pretty cool black box. It's the cover of the poster. It looks nice. Cool little game to add to the collection. Alien is also a game I consider, and a movie I consider to be horror, even though it is in the sci-fi genre. Because it does all the horror things, not just the sci-fi stuff. And I think it leans more into horror than sci-fi. I think space just happens to be the setting of the horror.
It's a stupid Pac-Man game.
Yeah, it is. But Alien in general. So, anyways, I like it. Pick it up. Pick up Alien.
I like it too. This game has definitely increased in price a lot since I'll say the pandemic, because I think a lot of video games increased in price. But this is like one of the Atari games that's like relatively common, gettable, sealed, and so people are like, "Oh, Alien, that's a cool property." If I'm looking for Atari 2600 games now, that's one I'll pick up.
And don't forget about the Nostromo.
What? The Nostromo?
The Nostromo.
Oh, the tidbit that you're going to relate it back to an old seafaring adventure book?
Yeah.
All right. Did you say this is like $150, Johnny?
I did.
All right. A sealed one also just sold for $400 from Josh Byerly, who's getting rid of his, that was like an 8.0 sealed one. It's like a pretty nice Alien. And then he's also, we found out, the seller of the Frankenstein's monster that I lost on Heritage Auctions, which that sold for like $1,500. But
thanks, Josh.
Josh had the nicest copy of Frankenstein's monster that anyone had ever seen. And, he's just like, I need to get rid of this. I'm going to buy something cooler. Josh.
That makes me sad. Hey, you like qualifiers, right? Would you like to talk about the first graphic adventure ever available on the Commodore 64?
Wow, that is some qualifiers. I have no idea what you're even talking about.
I know. It's Grave Robbers.
Is this even on our list? Where are you getting this from?
It's not. I'm just looking at it. I'm just telling you.
That's a lot of qualifiers, though. On the Commodore 64, who cares? That's like saying, what's the first horror game on the Nintendo 64? I don't know.
Yeah. Some people will care about that. Like some people, look, our big Commodore fans are going to be upset if we don't mention Grave Robbers.
Johnny, 1982, we're still in 1982 for a while here. Haunted House on the Atari 2600. Now, you might have noticed that a lot of the games we're talking about are a little bit bullshit. So either they're loose fits for horror, or they're so obscure that you've never heard of them. And there's like a couple good ones in there. I think like 3D Monster Maze, that's a pretty good one. But in terms of mass market horror games, how many people know what Poltergeist is on the TRS-80? People do not remember Poltergeist on the TRS-80. People do remember Haunted House on the Atari 2600. It's part of the series of go into the haunted house, get the treasure, and escape games. I think there's only one treasure. I think you're getting the Holy Grail on the top floor and then just getting out. And I wanted to call out this Wikipedia blurb because poor Christopher Buechler has the unfortunate distinction of getting this quote. Christopher Buechler of GameSpy have called Haunted House one of the earliest examples of survival horror in the video game genre due to its elements of creepy themes, limited item management, and variety of monsters. Out of all the games that are not survival horror games that we have already discussed, maybe with the exception of Hunt the Wumpus, Haunted House on the Atari 2600 is not a survival horror game.
What do you mean?
But it is a very cool game.
It is super cool. It is super important. It might be a lot of
I'm going to debate super important, but it is a very cool game.
It's super important in the genre. Okay, it's like I said. It's a lot of people's first experience with like a Halloween or horror game at all.
Yep. because no one remembers the Magnavox freaking Odyssey. I'm sorry, everyone
No,
who
they
played
sure
that stupid
don't.
card game.
So, and it's got a sweet box, and you can get in the Atari Black Box series, which is a super important line.
And it connects with millennials because you play as Meatwad.
Yep.
Once you play Haunted House, if you don't get that reference, you'll understand very quickly.
Yeah, and they've remade it like 3 times. There's a Switch remake. There's a Wii remake. Come on.
Yeah.
There was a Haunted House 2 that was supposed to come out that was never like fully released. Wasn't that true? I can't remember all the details on that.
I don't remember. If there was a prototype of it, they probably put it on some Atari, one of those remake consoles. This game is dirt cheap, Johnny. Like $20 shipped for a pretty decent one. Like, just go get a copy of Haunted House. You can get the Sears Telegames one for like $20. You can get the regular one. Just go get it. It's cool.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should have this game. This is
one of those classic Atari painting boxes. Like Atari, man, has the best box art, and it's got like one of those paintings where it just looks like multiple things faded in over each other for whatever reason. And so it's got like a house, a guy's eyes, a spider, and then a bat over it, or a bunch of bats actually. It's cool. I love this box, and I won't say I love the game, but I do like the game.
Yeah, I like the game, and I do love the box, and yeah, it's awesome. There's also like one of those like ceiling danglers you can always find on eBay, new old stock, like a mobile, that like spins.
Yeah. So Atari had a bunch of those store displays, new old stock left over because I guess people stopped buying their games and they had a bunch of leftover junk.
Yep. So this is a cool one you can go find. And you should. Like, so far, like, this is the most obtainable thing we've talked about and the most relatable.
Yep, definitely. Johnny, going back into unobtainable and unrelatable games, I do want to give a special shout out to 1982's Phantom Slayer, which is part of the obscure history of first-person shooter games. Maybe, kinda. You run around a grid. It's not in real time. It's one of those grid-based games. And you shoot creepy guys in robes. So basically you need to shoot them before they jump on you. Kind of one of the first FPS games. I'm going to count it. I'll call it a first-person shooter. And it has a creepy horror theme.
Okay.
There is one on eBay, apparently. Is this... Oh, it's actually available. £20. Go get that. It's the original version, too. And it's the Dragon 32 version. So this game came out on, was the TRS-80 and the Dragon 32? And obviously you want the Dragon 32 one, because that, similar to the Exidy Sorcerer, sounds awesome.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Get that one. Do it. $20. You can't go wrong.
I mean, plus shipping from the UK, which is going to be another $20.
Yeah, probably.
That still feels like a decent deal, though.
Yeah, it's probably not bad. Let's talk about an LCD game. You love LCD games, right?
No, they're not. I collect video games. What are you talking about?
Is this not a video game?
Does it have a video signal?
I mean, how is this not a video game?
Johnny, what are you talking about? Just say what you're saying. Don't make everything this mystery where I have to guess what you're going to talk about.
I just going to tell you about, it's not, I don't make everything a mystery. You settle down. Okay. I'm talking about Terror House. It's an LCD game. And basically I'm just putting this on here because there's this whole swath of people. And even if it's not exactly a video game, I think they are consumed much in the same way video games are. And it's meant to fill that exact same space. And only people who love to get into technical definitions might not include this in their video game collection. Terror House 1982. It's the first LCD game that you might consider horror. There's a bunch of these from 1982. There's a Frankenstein, some Dracula ones, a vampire game. There's a whole plethora of LCD games that come out in like the early to mid 80s that kind of encompass this theme, and it goes all the way on until the early 90s. Interestingly enough, there are not many Tiger handheld games that you would consider horror, Halloween, or spooky, though. So This one is a little bit expensive. You can find a loose version of this game for about $70 to $80. But if you want it in the box, the only one I saw was like $700 or $800. Obviously, that's someone who just looked at the market and said, I can charge whatever I want. So I don't know if that's the real price, but that feels like way too much money for what this is.
I mean, if you were a child with a handheld electronic game in the early 80s, who is saving that box? Like, I could understand if someone had a sealed one for some reason and they're like, oh, I could ask whatever I want. This is sealed. But who kept it complete in box? That's madness.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is it features a bunch of the classic monsters. And I was looking for our next game, which is Curse of the Werewolf, trying to find the first iteration of a werewolf game. And I rested on this before we even added the LCD stuff on this. Curse of the Werewolf, 1983 for the Commodore 64 and VIC-20. That's the first werewolf game. And then I'm looking at this stupid game, Terror House, the LCD game, and there's a werewolf right in the middle of it. I'm like, okay.
We found it. It's objectively the first werewolf game.
Kind of. Again, there are so many caveats to our whole list of caveats we've already listed. But yes, this is definitively a werewolf in a game that we can identify that was sold at retail. Terror House LCD game, first werewolf game. There you go. That's why it's important to me.
It's so important. Everyone was wondering. They're like, is it Altered Beast? No, it's not.
No. And then there is, as I was mentioning before, Curse of the Werewolf, which came out in 1983. So we finally get out of 1982 and get to 1983, the year Return of the Jedi came out in movie theaters. That's an important year. This game is one of the earliest titles to feature a werewolf. It's the central element of the game. You must navigate through a haunted world facing the dangers of a werewolf's curse. It's a puzzle solver. There you go.
What is a puzzle solver?
It is a retail game. Yep. Puzzles. You solve puzzles. That's what that means.
Like jigsaw puzzles?
Yeah.
Wait, are you serious?
In the game. No, not jigsaw puzzles.
God damn it.
Anyways, that's what this game is. It was available at retail. Congratulations. It could be bought. And it comes on a cassette tape. So go check out Curse of the Werewolf for the VIC-20 and get yourself a cool game. So yes, Werewolf. It's a puzzle solving adventure, Tyler, that's done entirely through text. Do you love text games? Do you want to solve the mystery of being turned into a werewolf?
I think a lot of our listeners are looking to collect a lot of really obscure text adventures. That's why they're listening to this episode.
Look, if I could subtitle this episode so far, I would call it Text Adventures and Maze Games That You Might Never Buy.
Okay, perfect.
So that's what this is. That Grave Robbers I mentioned too. Yeah, it's a maze game. Go get it.
All right.
Let's go get
so
some maze
fitting
games.
into that alien, we've literally got like 3 genres. So like 3D Monster Maze, that's a 3D maze game, and then Aliens, just Pac-Man, and yeah, we've got adventure games, maze games, and that's
text
it.
adventures.
Yeah,
that's it. That's hey, welcome to gaming in the early 80s. Pretty exciting. But Tyler, let's switch it up and let's get to a different type of game, shall we?
Yes.
You ready? Okay, we're moving on. It's 1983. The years are growing, games are getting more complicated, and finally we can talk about Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Games no one has ever talked about ever, especially around Halloween, especially Never Us.
Do you have both of these or just one of them, Johnny? I'm curious.
I have both of these.
You're so cool, man. These games are so cool, and they've always been cool, and they'll always be cool.
I wish I had the box for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't.
Well, there's one on eBay in kind of bad condition for $1,800 if you need it.
Oh, no thanks. I'm not that interested. Maybe one day.
There are a lot of copies. So, I mean, come on. Everyone knows what these games are at this point, right?
Yep.
These are they both games where you play the killer? I can't even remember because I haven't played
No. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you play as the killer.
Okay.
Yeah. Which might be the first game where you actually play as the killer. It also is the first game based on, these are the first games based on slasher movies. Poltergeist, we feel like predates this. So you may say that's the first horror game, or first game based off of a horror movie. Tyler says he's definitely not counting Shark Jaws, so shut up, Johnny.
Yes, I think Shark Jaws came out in the mid to late 70s, obviously ripping off Jaws. But so Shark Jaws may be based on what you could call a horror movie, but it's not a horror game at all.
Yeah. And these are direct 1-to-1. Like there's a horror movie, here's the game from it. It predates Alien and The Evil Dead. You said it predates Alien, but we have Alien listed in 1982. So how does that work?
I don't know, man. I don't know what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
It doesn't. This is not the first licensed horror movie game. I just was wrong.
No. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's why I have this as the first slasher as mine. First one based off of a slasher.
Yeah.
Which is, people might be like, oh, that, again, throwing more and more labels on top of it to really distill it down. But slashers are super big part of 80s horror, so I don't feel too bad about saying which is the first like game based off of a slasher horror film, because that is a whole genre unto itself.
There are a lot more copies of Texas Chainsaw Massacre on eBay than I would have expected.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I'm counting 6 complete in box ones, and then maybe another half a dozen cartridges. And some of the cartridges look different. I don't know how many of these are repro. So one of them has much darker reds than the other. And I know this game had a troubled kind of history, but I don't know how to verify these basically. But there are a bunch. 2 of the complete ones are from I guess you could open these? Are the screws on the back, or is this one of those things where you have to like kind of squidgy it open? Anyway, the guy's showing the PCB. Looks kind of legit. Cool. 2 of them, someone we have maybe poked a little fun at for trying to hype these as like literally the best video games you could possibly own. Believe it or not, that person has it for sale, a signed copy, for a cool $55,000.
Oh, should I buy that?
You probably should. I mean, it's an 8.5 complete in box. That is a really nice copy. And then I think it's signed by everyone except Leatherface. It was signed by like the people in the movie that you could actually get signatures from, but I don't think it has like the most important one, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I looked at this $55,000 copy of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
I still think these games are super, super cool.
Yeah, there is a guy who's got the cart only listed for $299, and that's like, that would be a great price. Again, confirming that these are real is a little bit difficult. I know there are ways, but yeah, this is $299. If that's that's a pretty good price on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Go get it.
Prices have definitely drifted down on this game over the last 5 years. Remember how high this got during the pandemic? It was insanity. Like no one was ever recovering from that.
I'll never financially recover from this, as you might say. This is so frustrating because like this is the type of game that is the exact type of game that I want a grading company to authenticate for me, and one that I actually trust. And like I'm getting to the point where I'm like, if there's something really obscure, I just don't trust grading companies to authenticate this kind of stuff. I'll believe that they can authenticate a legit seal on an NES game, but like for a Famicom Disk System game where there's like 200 copies of it, I'm not going to trust them to authenticate it. And I think this would fall into the category of like, all right, if you're not going to tell me how you authenticate this, then I think you're just guessing. But I would like, this is the kind of thing I would love to buy. One that I know is real because I'm looking at them and they look so different between the different listings, and some of them have to be fake. Frustrating.
Some of them definitely are. A lot of people have made repros of this. They've done all kinds of things with this. Yeah.
Yeah, so this $429 one looks so different that like I don't want to call it fake and just put this guy on blast, but like I can see the pins look so different from the pins of the other ones I'm seeing. Man, I hate fake video games. Why'd you guys do this? Ugh.
Yeah, when the pins look that clean too, you're like, oh, they look so clean. Why do these look so new?
His
Was this
pins
never
are
jammed into
silver,
an
and the
Atari?
guy who has a picture of the PCB, his pins are brass. So one of those is fake. I'm guessing it's
the silver. If you look at the $1,800 complete one, that one, his pins look silver.
fuck, dude. I'm just not gonna buy these games. Like, this is so frustrating. I hate it.
Also, the boxes on these are like super cheap, so they're always kind of mangled.
That's why you got to get that $55,000 one. That one is a nice box.
That is a nice box. Let me go drop $55,000 on it.
I mean, I don't think you'll regret it. And in terms of investment, I think it could only grow. I think in 10 years, people are easily paying $4 million for your signed copy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Atari 2600, signed by people who really had nothing to do with the video game version of it.
Yeah, so if I was going to recommend if you buy this, like, I would be looking for one. Like, this is no guarantee, but like, I wouldn't want a really nice looking one. Honestly, it would. If it doesn't look pretty scuffed, I'm going to be even more suspicious about it. There is a graded version you can get for $9,000 though, an 8.5. You want that 8.5?
Yeah, this sucks.
How about a 7.0? 5,000.
Okay. Oh, the guy, there's also a signed copy of Halloween. There's 2 signed Halloweens, and they actually got Michael Myers' signature because that guy's still alive. So the one guy has it for $110,000. This is apparently an even bigger grail than Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they got the right signature. Oh, no, the signature's on the WADA case. Fuck that. Are you serious? Oh, get the fuck out of here. Oh, I hate things that are signed on the case. They never hold up. Who's spending $110,000 on this? Like, you've definitely seen like a signed Black Lotus that like it's all smudged on the case. It just looks like fucking trash. Ugh.
Yeah, never do
get
it.
cases signed.
Just get out of it.
That's like signing a jewel case without taking the manual out to have them sign the paper.
We're never doing that.
But never. Good news, there's a non-graded signed copy of Halloween for Atari 2600, and it's only $3,500 from the same seller. I don't know why this one's so much cheaper. I don't really understand. Like, that means that you're valuing the signature and the mildly better condition at $106,000. Like, how could any signature or condition bump for an Atari game be worth that much?
No idea.
Or they're making this one look like a deal, because now I have anchored in my head Halloween signed for the Atari 2600 is worth $110,000. So this $3,500 one seems more reasonable.
I think you figured it out.
Did you add this to your cart? eBay's giving me a notification that one person has this in their cart.
I did not add this to my cart. No. Not it.
All right.
Right.
I hate that I can't find real ones of these. I'm sure I could, but I don't care enough.
Again, first slashers. There you go. First game based off slashers.
Johnny, the next one is a recurring game on the Collector's Quest podcast. It is one of the Famicom games, like one of the 10 Famicom games that people go and commonly seek out that aren't just the Japanese version of an American game. Sweet Home from 1989, also based on a movie. Pretty much the foundation of what we know as survival horror. This is the game that sort of came before Resident Evil, and everything about it oozes the same themes and style of Resident Evil. It is about going into a creepy mansion full of zombies, but it's not an action game. It's a top-down adventure RPG. So half the game is grinding turn-based battles, and then the other half is running around managing your limited inventory and like solving stupid puzzles. It's got jump scares, it's got super horrific themes, it's got gore, it's got permadeath, it has limited amounts of items that can actually heal you. So it's not like most RPGs will have like a hospital you can go to just get healed up for free, or like a vendor that has unlimited healing items. There's a limited amount of healing items in the entire game of Sweet Home, so that adds stress to the battles, even though you'll just grind to the point where you can beat every battle without getting hit, because that's how much that concept stresses me out. So that really kind of ruined the game for me. I think this is a legitimate survival horror game. It's about $100 complete in box. I'm going to say go buy a copy of Sweet Home, as we always say.
And it's based off a movie, which I know we've said before.
Yeah, one of the rare games that is probably better than the movie it's based off of, at least more remembered than the movie it's based off of.
Yep. And now here's one that's also all you. Tell me about Project Firestart from 1989.
1989, really good year for survival horror. We've been talking about all these bullshit games. So Project Firestart is the other game that is like the absolute prototype for the survival horror genre. This is it's a PC game. It's an isometric adventure game, so you can kind of move in 3 dimensions. Well, is it 2 dimensions? It's really 2 dimensions because you only can move on the 2 dimensions, but it has that isometric view. And you're on a spaceship, and it even gives you and you know, it's got like aliens chasing you and shit. I hate how innovative this game is as a horror game, and you look at the box and you're like, oh, it's an Alien ripoff, because they had to rip off Alien because everyone was ripping off Alien all the time, even on this list.
Is the ship named the Nostromo?
Guess what the fucking ship is named in Project Firestart? It's named Prometheus.
Oh,
that's
boy.
Before they even made the movie. How crazy is that?
My favorite.
It's literally Alien. You're solving puzzles around the ship. You're running away from slow enemies. And it's got like the Michael Myers thing where like the enemies are always slowly coming at you and you have to like kind of close doors behind you so they can't get you. And your gun sucks. So they even give you an in-game justification for this. You get like a little pea shooter pistol and you can't use better weaponry than that because you're on a spaceship and you'll blow up the spaceship, that's a good in-game lore reason for that.
Can't you upgrade
also,
the gun?
this game, I think, was in
different guns you could find.
I think there's more weapons you could find, but you can't. There's no like rocket launch or anything. Like it takes hits.
It's just like guns, like that load faster or something. Shoot, like have more ammo. Isn't that how that was?
But they did. I remember they specifically calling out why you don't have super powerful weapons.
Yeah,
because you're in like the future.
Okay.
This is an EA game. And I think it was in development for 2.5 years. And you could find like accounts of the developers of like, this is the hardest game they ever made. Because this was like a completely new concept. And like, obviously, when you're in the era of like Atari and NES and you release like a legitimate survival horror game in space, and like some reviewers are just like, man, this game's real boring. Like you don't even see the aliens in this game until like an hour into it. What the fuck? Who wants to play a game like that? Like, oh man, your gun sucks. And some people just like don't get it. And it's just like one of these games that is hurt from being so far ahead of its time. And it was a complete commercial flop, even though it's a really cool game. And it's like $200 complete in box now.
At least 200. I think that's like on the cheaper side, isn't it?
I thought that, but then I went on eBay and I think there was a buy it now setting for 200.
Oh, okay.
Those prices are coming down. Oh man, the hype is over, guys. All your investments are going to zero. You should have put it all in the S&P 500. I told you.
Relatively obscure still, though. Like it doesn't show up all that often. Not a lot of times.
I think this is enough of a push your glasses up your nose if you want to talk about the true origin of survival horror. And I think the two games people are going to come to are Sweet Home or Project Firestart. So go make a blog post about Project Firestart, please.
Please do. I mean,
Johnny, 1989, the third game I want to talk about, the game that doesn't get its due in the survival horror canon, Friday the 13th on NES.
It's a choice. Why? Tell me why.
Johnny, it's another game where you have an unstoppable bad guy that relentlessly chases you, weapons that suck, permadeath of multiple characters, inventory management because you don't want one of your kids to die when they have the good weapons, weird controls because you're running around Crystal Lake and like sometimes you're kind of going the reverse way of the map and you kind of have to get a hang of how that works. And it has puzzles. It's like going through that forest path at the north of the map. It's a little puzzly. There's like hidden paths and stuff. Friday the 13th on NES, I'm going to say, is a survival horror game.
All right. I'm here for it. Yeah, I like it.
I think this game maybe gets its due now. I think there is definitely a core of people who understand, like, this is a good game. And I think that might be just because if you had this game as a kid and you had the cartridge that you bought at Funkoland without the manual, like, you'd really be fucked. But in an age where, like, you could look up, like, how to play this on YouTube, or maybe, like, look up the manual or look up just, like, a fact of, like, how do I actually play this fucking game? It's a pretty good game. And then, like, if you're just someone who watches the Angry Video Game Nerd and thinks that all his opinions are real, maybe you'd be like, oh, I bet the list of Wikipedia video games notable for negative reception has Friday the 13th on it, which is bananas, because this game is innovative and interesting. It's not like the best game in the world, but this is a very cool video game. And it's Friday the 13th.
It was made by Rare. And it's made by Rare. What do you want?
Yeah. And speaking of Rare, it's super common. Like, just go get it. It's Friday the 13th. Even sealed, it's common. What is a Friday the 13th on NES? This is hot research. I'm just going to eBay right now. Yeah, you can get a cartridge for like $10. Oh, right. I forgot. This game exploded during the pandemic. No way. No way is it $175, Johnny. All right, let's say $100 is maybe more reasonable. That I thought it was cheaper than that. Yeah, you can get it for less than $100, but for like a nice one, it looks actually like $100 to $150.
Okay, still
cool game
for the price of like important NES games that also make great Instagram photos. You could do a lot worse than Friday the 13th.
Yep.
That's my insight.
Good insight.
Yep. I love it. You know, I'm here for it. This is another Tyler game coming up. 1992. We're cruising through the years now.
This is just this is all survival horror now. We already had a whole episode on survival horror, so we don't really need to go into these. But yeah, Alone in the Dark, another one where people point to as like, this is the real origin of survival horror. Really, next to Project Firestart, I don't think that you could say that Alone in the Dark is the real origin. They share too many similarities in what they do, but this is the first 3D survival horror game with weird, stupid tank controls, sort of in the vein of survival horror you would recognize, where survival horror, coined by Resident Evil 4 years later. That's what Alone in the Dark is. It's $50 to $100. If you're buying it, make sure it comes with this very tiny book. It's like a 3 centimeter by 2 centimeter little feely insert. It's amazing. One of my favorite video game inserts.
Yep.
Really you get that, and then obviously Resident Evil. Everyone knows what Resident Evil is. Go buy the long box. What is it? $100, $200. It's worth it. It's Resident Evil. Whatever. You have to own a Resident Evil.
You can get it for like $100. Just got to be careful.
Go get it. Or go get Biohazard.
Alone in the Dark.
I bet Biohazard is literally worth nothing in Japan. And that's the real version. You could probably get it for $20. Go get that one. If you don't want to spend $100 on long bucks.
Yeah. Alone in the Dark, just remade too. Came out last year. It was supposed to come out last October, and then the remake failed and didn't come out until I think December or after. Missed its window completely.
What? I don't understand the Alone in the Dark franchise, because what was it? Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare was 2006. And I think that game was pretty popular, but I think it's also just because, how many games did you have on Xbox 360 when the Xbox 360 came out?
If I remember right about Alone in the Dark, so the creator of the original Alone in the Dark made it and then did not make the rest of the games. Went off and founded his own studio because he couldn't come to terms with them after Alone in the Dark. So every game after Alone in the Dark, One Eye Jack's Revenge, and all that started coming out without his influence. And I believe it was him and his wife were the makers of this game. And they both left.
Interesting. Yeah, so who cares about Alone in the Dark as a series? I don't want to dunk on it. I think Alone in the Dark is cool, but they're rebooting it. It just came out, right? The new one?
Yep.
It's such a weird franchise to reboot after doing nothing for so many years. Like, they've rebooted it multiple times, just called Alone in the Dark. I didn't even wait. New Nightmare is a different game than the 2008 Alone in the Dark. I did not realize that. All right, whatever.
Yeah, it's become
Alone
very
in the Dark. There's Alone in the Dark, Alone in the Dark 2. That was the one that was ported to Saturn as One-Eyed Jack's Revenge or whatever that's called. Alone in the Dark 3 in 1995. Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare, which is Alone in the Dark 4 in 2001. And then the Xbox 360 one that was also ported to everything in 2008.
Yeah.
And then they made a third-person shooter in 2015? What is this? Stop. Just let this franchise rest. It's part of history. We don't need to reboot it.
They're just capitalizing on that franchise money. That's got a no name. Also, Alone in the Dark 2 for the Saturn, very famously the first horror game to come with a phone card. So make sure you get that very important flex.
Man, there are some games that come with phone cards in Japan. I would not be surprised if it's not the first horror game to come with a phone card.
It's a joke. I
know. I know. Make sure you got that phone card.
Yeah. All right, Tyler.
I don't know what the rest of this episode is. I don't know what you're talking about at this point.
Just this isn't really for collectible. This is just some fun stuff that now happens around Halloween that I'm throwing in at the end. EverQuest. You've heard of this game?
No, never heard of EverQuest. Is that like some kind of successor to Neverwinter Nights on AOL?
Yeah, that's it. You nail it. So if you've never heard of EverQuest and you never played it, well, guess what? It's an MMO. So go get these MMORPGs. You can play them with your friends online, and you could do that in EverQuest and kill rabbits or something for tons of days. Anyways, if you've played any MMO now, you realize, or like basically any online game, they always have like holiday theming, right? Like, oh, it's the Christmas event. It's the Halloween event. It's the whatever event. Like Christmas and Halloween on a lot of these games, like first-person shooters, MMOs, like any game that you're playing online, like you'll get Halloween-themed skins. Like they take advantage of the holidays. But really the first game to do that was EverQuest. EverQuest came out in 1996. They did an event in 2001. If there's one that did this before that, let me know. But as far as I could tell, 2001 is the first time where we really got an in-game Halloween event. They put in some pumpkin-headed monsters. There was special drops from them. You could get like a wearable pumpkin head. Sometimes they dropped candy. World of Warcraft that expanded upon this and their Halloween events, and you actually had a trick-or-treat mechanic that came into the game. You could go to the inns and you could click on, there was like a little candy tub or cauldron or whatever. You click on it and it would give you either candy or some kind of loot, but you could also get tricked. So this is the first time like tricks are starting to be incorporated into that idea. You turn into a bat or a skeleton for a minute and then it would wear off. Pretty fun. Just a nice little addition. Then that said, again, there are earlier computer games where there are RPGs that were networked together, like Play-Doh Network games, where this all could have been done before that, but this is the first ones where you could see it. And yes, you can go buy copies of World of Warcraft. How does that incorporate the Halloween stuff? Like on the physical box, it won't. But when you buy, I think, any MMO, you understand you are buying the representation of something that exists in a much bigger, much more changed state than what was originally in the box. And then just back into Halloween events, Harvest Moon also had some Halloween events in it, kind of, in Back to Nature in 1999, and then also the remake in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance Friends of Mineral Town. It's not specifically called Halloween. It's called the Pumpkin Festival. You can visit houses. There are treats. There are kids in costumes. It's not called trick-or-treating specifically. It's not called Halloween, but clearly it's leaning on that idea. So those are just a couple of add-ons for, I think, an idea that has been tacked onto games now that we kind of we take for granted wasn't always a thing, that these events now and, getting into the season that there was Halloween events. MMOs really did this. City of Heroes did, like every MMO I've ever played really had some Halloween or Christmas event attached to it.
I want to know. I mean, I don't want to know because I don't really care. But I would not be surprised if there was a MUD that had some kind of event before EverQuest in like the 2000s or whatever.
I'm sure. Like,
so MUD, multi-user dungeon. I'm sure everyone knows. This is a text-based MMO basically without graphics that you would like SSH or Telnet into the server. It is a completely dead genre, and kind of unfortunately, because it is a weird genre that like all of these were kind of like free. Not all of them were free, but a lot of them were like hobbyist run, like run on donations and stuff. And a lot of these like little ones popped up because there's a lot of open source implementations of it. And so the overall history of MUDs is not super well documented. And I very highly doubt we'd be able to find out like which ones had seasonal events. I'm just here, Johnny, to say I'm sad that this genre is basically dead. If you go into any MUD discussion board, you can go into the MUD subreddit, it'll basically be like the saddest place, and every other post will be like, I'm so sad that no one plays so-and-so MUD anymore, and I'm the only one online for 16 hours a day. It's sad. It's a sad place. If you want to feel sad, like Pirates of Darkwater sad, you're sad that it got canceled before you got a resolution. Go find a MUD discussion group.
Yeah, ooh, a rare Pirates of Darkwater reference. Been a while.
Yeah.
We were just talking about how that actually just like the group we made on Facebook is actually just a Pirates of Darkwater group now. That's just what it is. It's not even a fake group anymore. It's just people who like Pirates of Darkwater. Tyler, that's all I got. Pretty cool. Cool list. Lots of weird, obscure stuff in here that you could get. Anything else?
Go get 3D Monster Maze.
All right. Let's do the other thing we do. Let's answer some questions, and let's hear what you bought and what you played. Ooh, I should tell you, I want, here's a bonus for you guys. There is a sports game that is horror themed, and I don't know if I've ever talked about it. And it's called Grave Yardage. I don't know if you guys have heard of this game. I believe it came out, it's Activision, 1989. It's a PC game, but basically it's zombies playing football. So go find Grave Yardage. It's got a cool box, looks like a tombstone on the box, and zombies playing football. And I mean, not just zombies, other monsters as well. So very cheap, not something you're going to spend a lot of money on. It's an MS-DOS game. And yeah, you can get it for like $20. If you care about such silly things, Grave Yardage is a great game. And I use great very loosely that you could go pick up.
I'm pretty sure Games Workshop is going to sue because of Grave Yardage's obvious similarities to Blood Bowl. And I'm just realizing, why are there so many horror football things? So Blood Bowl is the big one. There are multiple Blood Bowl games. And then like Pigskin Foot Brawl, I think does that one?
Yep.
Does that one just has violence? But then Mutant League Football has weird monsters. Who's playing these games?
I think maybe just football was is popular.
Were you ever into tabletop wargaming?
I sure was not.
So in my local scene, I don't know, maybe if you live in like LA, there's like an actual local scene. The local scene in the small to medium-sized towns I've lived in for Warhammer has been like at most, if you're in a game shop, like 4 guys, and we're talking tops. And usually it was just me and my friends, because I played Warhammer Fantasy, which was less popular than Warhammer 40K. And as far as I know, Warhammer Fantasy like doesn't even exist anymore, maybe. And then, man, you get to Blood Bowl. Sometimes the freaking Blood Bowl guys were out there, which is like, Warhammer is known for being very expensive, very time consuming, because you got to like paint all your miniatures. Nothing comes pre-done for you. You got to assemble and paint all your miniatures, actually. And they're very expensive. And so when I see the 2 guys playing Blood Bowl, I'm just like looking at them like, who is spending all this time and money to play a horror football tabletop game? And I just always thought they were crazy.
You know, I had never heard of Blood Bowl until this moment.
You should maybe get into some Blood Bowl. It's
You know, they released Magic cards that had some references to this, and I was like, how is this attached to football? I don't understand when they did the Warhammer stuff, and now I get it.
So is Warhammer Fantasy actually dead?
I have no idea. I'm not a Warhammer guy. Clearly,
Because I remember
remember
they ended like the current set of rules like a few years ago at some point. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Like all my old figures are just gonna be completely worthless now, which is fine. I don't care. But oh yeah, now it's called Warhammer Age of Sigmar, which is a terrible name. All right, whatever.
Anyway,
go play Blood Bowl. You want to get into Blood Bowl? Maybe we'll get like a vintage starter set for like $800 on eBay or something.
Maybe. Hey, can we just instead play it on the 360 where we can get it for $10 and play online?
No. If you're not spending 40 hours painting each of your figures with perfect shading, what is even the point?
Okay. Well, I also then maybe suggest the PS4 version of Blood Bowl 2. And if you're not into that, how about the PSP version from 2010? There are more Blood Bowl games than I would have thought.
There really are.
Yes. There also is a CD-ROM game from 1995. What is happening?
Yeah, it's all for those two weird Blood Bowl guys at the game store. I swear to God. I have no idea who was into this. Like, you would have to be so specifically into, because like you cannot divide your attention between war games, because you got to like keep up with new releases. There's always cool new products coming out. You got to spend time painting them. You only have so much budget. So if you're playing Blood Bowl, you're probably playing fucking Blood Bowl, and you have like made a conscious decision. Yeah, I want to play the games where orcs play football over like grand strategy Warhammer Fantasy or like tactical Warhammer 40K, like the coolest sci-fi fantasy universe in the world. You're choosing to play the orc football game, which is almost as expensive, complex, and you'll never find anyone to play it with.
Yeah.
My Blood Bowl people, send me a DM if you're into Blood Bowl and just tell me your thought process. I don't think it's stupid. I think it's fascinating how it has survived so long. I was supposed to get a question. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Tiger Wolf asks, what's your opinion on truffles?
What's my opinion? I'm sorry. What?
What's your opinion on truffles?
Did you ask my opinion on truffles?
Yeah.
Truffles, the chocolate, or truffles like the
He did not
mushroom?
specify, which is kind of annoying.
I don't usually eat truffles. I think truffle oil is repugnant when it's on food. Chocolate truffles are fine, though I'm not really a big, like, eat a chocolate candy kind of guy from, like, boxed chocolates. So truffles are fine. They come in many flavors. My wife enjoys them a lot. I'm a caramel guy. Give me a butter chew.
I don't have a good sense of smell, so I can't rate foods, but I'm going to assume he's talking about the mushrooms. So sometimes, I'll get some truffle salt and I'll just be like, haha, this makes me fancy. But in reality, I can't really tell the difference. That's my opinion on truffles.
Okay. Yeah.
Tiger Wolf also says, just thinking about a day in the life of a collector. I don't know what that is. What is that?
That's what you do in your day-to-day basis.
What does your collecting week look like? How often does mail arrive? Then what's your routine after it arrives? Do you catalog before or after getting stuff? Cataloging before getting stuff? What kind of crazy nonsense is that? What if it gets destroyed or lost in the mail? That's a guaranteed way to have your collection database be bad.
Yeah, you're asking to be jinxed. I'm superstitious. No, thank you. We don't even talk about games that we haven't gotten usually, or we put a bunch of heavy, like when we do the, what have you bought? What are you playing? Like, if it hasn't arrived, I don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the way I collect these days, I have a few save searches set. I mean, a few being probably 200, because that's the max you can have. But they're not stuff that gets hits all the time. So I wake up, I probably got 4 save search hits. Every once in a while, it's something kind of cool, and I click it, but I wake up late, so I always click it, and it's like, oh, it was already sold by it now. That's been my experience a lot lately. And then when buying stuff, I guess like there are some things that I drill down into. Like I look a lot for like Super Mario Brothers variants. I'll just spend like 30 minutes digging through every copy of Super Mario Brothers on eBay. Other than that, I'm not doing any crazy sets. Like I have largely I've been cruising on save searches. I'm not doing anything insane. Like I used to spend hours digging through eBay, and especially when I had just started, in like the mid to late 2000s, like my hobby was simultaneously browsing every listing on eBay for all video games while cycling through like the Digit Press and Game TZ and Nintendo Age forums. I'm a lot more casual these days. I've said it a lot, but I'm feeling very comfortable with where my collection's at.
I feel much the same way. A lot more coasting, especially when you're not doing sets. There's a lot less obsessing that you have to do. And you can just like kind of sit back and be like, well, that save search will tell me if I missed it or not. So that's fine. So as far as like day to day, like what happens, Monday, I expect more packages to come in than any other day of the week because we don't have posts on Sundays. So usually stuff gets accumulated. Something happens. I expect get a package. I open it up when I get home from work. Usually what I do right after I feed my son and go to the bathroom, open those up and put them away so they're not lingering on the shelf. Get the boxes out of the house. I hate having lingering cardboard boxes around. So do that, clear it out, scan it real quick. So it's in my list of games I own. This is not like a full cataloging of what I own now. There's a lot of that still has to happen. I haven't got fully back to that, but that way I'm not getting behind, at least. So all the new stuff is in there. And do that. And that I kind of repeat that process. Right now, maybe a game comes in once or twice a week if it's a good week. Sometimes 3 if something crazy is going on. Halloween's a little different, where all of that is amplified. I'm more like my old self where I'm looking at games, looking up things. I have these lists. I'm like scrolling through, trying to identify, trying to find. It's all the Halloween stuff is much more of a research project for me because there's no definitive list. As you could see, even from this episode, the cataloging of it is like nearly impossible to get completely right. So I'm constantly refining and trying to save links and stuff to what I know. So I have like some knowledge source, create a system, create ratings, how to do all of it. Currently right now too, then I usually come up and try to do a video or 2 or 3 if I'm really rolling to be ahead of the curve for Instagram for my Halloween videos. When it's not Halloween, if I get inspired, I might do a video a week. Sometimes I won't even do that. And yeah, that's pretty much how collecting goes for me. And sometimes there'll be like some new release that comes out and I'll be like, oh, and then I usually get triggered to go look at stuff on eBay by someone who mentions it to me. Like, oh, hey, did you see this cool variant? Or Josh Byerly will be like, look at this dumb thing I found, or, something like that. Someone who's into stuff like that with me will send me a message, or I'll be looking at random stuff and send them messages. And that's kind of how I exist. And then Tyler and I will randomly message each other and talk about episodes or ideas or dumb games we saw or something mentioned on a forum or on the Discord. So that is a day in the life of me, pretty much. That's how a week goes. That makes sense?
That makes sense to me, Johnny.
All right. And speaking of that Discord, I'll just do the ad now. If you want to join us and you want to talk to us on our Discord, go to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/collectorsquest. It's $4 to get our bonus episodes. And most importantly, you get access to our Discord where you hang out with all the best collectors, all my favorite ones anyways. And do that for $4 or don't. Just keep listening how you are. And that's all I got. Tyler, what else about? You got anything else? You want to talk about what you bought, what you played?
Johnny, it's not that interesting. I upgraded my Ultima Underworld box. That's the only thing I bought. Some guy with one feedback had a really nice Ultima Underworld box with incorrect components. I don't even think it had the game discs. And then it also had a bunch of extra Ultima Underworld 2 stuff. It was like a real mess. But the box was nice, and I think mine is a little sun-faded. That's what I bought. I upgraded my copy of Ultima Underworld. Another perennial, hey, Collector's Quest thinks you should buy this game. It is super cool and important. We love Ultima Underworld.
You sure do. All right. Did you play anything?
Like visual novels. Like, what am I gonna do? Explain the day-to-day high school slice of life of Clanad. It's fine. Whatever. I don't think I played any real games. I played a little bit of the coin game. I don't know if you've ever heard of the coin game.
I have not.
It is an indie, I'll call it survival game, where you live on like a small island and there's multiple like carnivals and arcades around town, and it has a bunch of recreations of like arcade ticket games, like every single arcade ticket game. And it's just kind of like a simulator where you run around and play all those. It's a fun game.
Okay.
I don't know. If you had to be there in the 90s playing arcade ticket games, maybe.
You there's a new sim game where you run a card shop if you're interested.
Were you seeing that on the what, are you playing that?
I'm not playing that. I saw some people playing it and some people told me about it. I mean, I have a friend who owns a card shop, so there's a bunch of people who are in that Discord playing it and making like proxies of the card shop that I go to. Didn't
we talk about this? That game frustrates me because it looks like kind of they very generically video gamified and made like a little silly shop simulator, when like actually owning a card shop seems like hell for multiple reasons, and they did not capture any of that. Like pre-ordering the incorrect amount of product, or having like customers say they're going to buy something and then not buy it, or dealing with returns. Like, I don't know. Like, if I had a card shop simulator, I want it to be about the shitty parts of opening a card shop. I want like a 90% failure rate after 2 years, like that kind of stuff. Like, oh no, a bigger card shop opened in town, and now you used to be the Friday Night Magic spot, and now you have 8 players every week. Like, that's what I want.
That's what you want.
And I want like the depressing one. Like, oh no, your card shop's kind of run down, but you run a card shop, so you don't have any money to make it nicer.
You should also get you should have like different customer types that wander in. You're like, the super annoying customer always wants to talk too much, lingers in front of the register, never buys anything.
Or like you hire an employee, but for the wages you pay, like you get an employee that's like kind of shitty to the customers. He's like just like a comic book guy.
Yeah. Well, or you have to balance out what they know. Like they've got a super high knowledge, but super low social skills. So like you have to balance those stats.
Yeah. Or or you can get like the nicer guy who's nice to people, and then like you come back and he bought like fake dual lands.
Yeah.
We have good video game ideas we're having.
Yeah. Also, you have to buy a girl at the video game store, but her pay is required to be higher, but she brings in more customers, but her knowledge is really low.
Ooh.
That's a trope, and a mean trope, but that's what people expect.
Yeah. What are you playing, Johnny? Oh, is that what you're playing? That's what you're playing.
No, I'm not. That's what I saw other people playing. I played a little Magic Online. Barely counts as a video game.
Totally counts as a video game.
Played a little of the new season of Diablo, but not much. So that's kind of it, Tyler. That was kind of the end.
That's the show
for what I did.
We're out.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your car ride, guys.
Yeah, I bought other stuff though. I bought things.
Oh, what'd you buy?
Oh, I could tell you about it. I bought a Ravenloft game. You ever heard of Ravenloft?
I have. It's the one with the spooky vampire count on the box.
Strahd, yeah. But there's a sequel called Stone Prophet. I have the other one, and I have a version of Stone Prophet, but I got the proper box version, big box version of Stone Prophet. That's a SSI PC game. Ooh, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Stone Prophet. So
I haven't played it, but it looks like a dungeon crawler, like every PC dungeon crawler ever has looked.
Yep. Hey, you're an ancient mummy. You want ancient mummies? Do mummies count for Halloween? I don't know.
We didn't do it. Scott Adams has a 70s adventure game. It's called it's like Pyramid Plunder, Pyramid Peril, something like that. Maybe that's the first mummy game. But we mentioned it before the show. I'm like, hey, Johnny, did you look up what the first Mummy game is? And you're like, mummies aren't Halloween, so I didn't even look into it.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of are. I don't know why I feel this way about mummy games, but it's like they're adjacent, but and I can't capture this in my metrics why it doesn't rate. But it just like it's just a personal feeling. I'm just like I don't know. Do mummies count? Like they're like undead monsters. You know, they're basically zombie kings. They should probably count.
Pyramid of Doom, 1979, Scott Adams text adventure. I have no idea what this game is, but it's called Pyramid of Doom, and it has a mummy coming through a doorway on the cover. We're going to count it. That's a Halloween game right there.
Okay, first mummy game. There you go. Maybe.
Definitely well-researched and accurate.
Yeah, definitely is no other mummy games out there. Okay. That's it. That's what I bought. That's what I played. That's it for the show.
All right, I'm gonna go eat dinner then. See ya.
All right, see you later. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening, and hope you learned something about historic Halloween firsts. Tell us where we were wrong a bunch of times, and tell me what we should be buying instead. If you have some Halloween knowledge, drop it on me. We love that. All right, that's it for the show. Bye!